G'day mate, 40 here. So people have really weird jogging styles. A lot of them like pulling down on themselves when they're jogging, or they're like holding their shoulders really high, or notice that like their feet just kind of like going off to the side. It's kind of weird. Often they have one side foot, I think it's like the right foot, I notice tends to often like flail out to the right side, and just all sorts of interfering muscular tension patterns I notice, so that because they're off center with every step, with every jolt, right? They're sending all sorts of layers of excess tension, compression just flowing throughout their body, and that puts a lot more strain on the joints, right? Particularly as you get older, it's going to be a lot harder to sustain this kind of abuse of your joints. So the more aligned you are, right, the more your head is poised on top of your spine, shoulders are releasing to the side, your head is going up and leading your whole torso into length, then you're going to put a lot less pressure, on your torso. So how do I still working out how to use this gimbal? So you want to be aligned in life. You go through life a lot more gently if you're aligned. If you don't have unnecessary tension patterns or interference patterns, if you're not tightening your shoulders, if you're not splaying to one side or the other, you're not tipping your head back and pressing your neck, if your head is not like way out of front of you, or God forbid tipping back. Many people seem to be permanently tipped back from the waist, right? And that's why you see like so much pain in the faces of people who are jogging, right? How often do you see a happy jogger, right? They normally have pain, determination, exhaustion, written all over their faces, and then just ghastly, meeting their obligation, frequently doing more harm to themselves than good. Right? That's called end gaining, when you prioritize the end over the means. Sometimes that's appropriate, but often, like end gaining, you'll just do far more harm to yourself than good. Like you may want to really lift a certain weight, but you'll so distort your musculature in the process that you're doing more harm than good. You may want to go for a run for your cardio health, right? Get you in your anaerobic exercise, but in the process, you may well, ingrain all sorts of destructive patterns. So that's the problem with goals. People often make ethical shortcuts to reach a goal, or they will take shortcuts at the cost of their health or their relationships or their family, or at the cost of other even worthier goals. So goals can tempt you into making shortcuts, moral, physical, spiritual, psychological, and they can narrow your focus, and they can tempt you to cheat. So another word for this is end gaining, where you put such a priority on the ends that you just don't think about the enormous damage that you're doing to yourself to try to reach these ends. So what's the old cliche that it's more about the journey than the destination? Well, sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But either way, whether it's about the journey or the destination, you don't want to have unnecessary tension in your shoulders. You don't have unnecessary tension in your face. You want your head poised on top of your spine, leading your whole spine into length and width. You don't want to be tipping backwards from your hips. You don't want to have anterior pelvic tilt, which is very common, particularly on the right side of the pelvis. And then all sorts of things have to wrench to keep the eyes even, causing back pain. As many people tend to have like one shoulder is a lot taller than the other. And when you go through life in this kind of hinged, distorted fashion, right, it's going to distort your relationships with other people. It's going to distort your relationship with yourself, distort your relationship with reality. So the more you're trying to impose yourself on the world, and the more likely you are to get unnecessary tension patterns. The more comfortable you are simply observing reality, letting go of unnecessary judgments and opinions, so that you're just in a place of awareness rather than judgment, right? So right now I'm just placing myself in a state of awareness, and I let go of unnecessary bodily tension. If I was making a video where I was trying to pronounce my judgments, then my face would tense up, my neck would tense up, and there'd be a lot of tightening and compressing going on, some holding of the breath, and all that would distort my thinking, my speech, my movement patterns. So people from so-called uncivilized countries where they don't sit in chairs, they tend to move the most freely and easily. They tend to be the most at ease because they're not distorted by sitting in a chair. They're not distorted by living in an intellectualized world, an abstract world. So when you're in your head, when you're living in an abstract world, you're much more vulnerable to developing all sorts of unnecessary tension patterns, compression patterns, because you've gotten out of touch with reality. That's why I noticed that women tend to be much more in touch with reality and with their bodies. They tend to move much more smoothly. They don't have the weird distorting compression tension patterns that I see with men, particularly during jogging or any form of exertion. Giving a speech, when you're under pressure, that's when your unnecessary compression and tension patterns become most obvious.